Yeah! Well, now the gavel's calling. Let's get this session started. Hey, folks, grab a seat. It's time to get the scoop. Bakers in session, serving justice with a whoop. From sunny Cali courts to the heartland's dusty halls, we'll spin the yarns of trials big and small. Oh, Baker in session, tales old and brand new. Some make you laugh, some will leave you in a stew. Gavels dropping beats, witnesses take the stand. Join the fun, y'all, across this great land. Classic papers like OJ or that moonshine bust. Fresh headlines steaming hot. In Baker we trust. Murder in the Midwest, scams down south so sly. We'll break it down with grins, no need to cry. East Coast embezzlers, West Coast wild rides. Supreme Court showdowns where the big shots collide. From petty thefts to plots that twist and turn, Baker's got the stories that'll make you learn and burn. Oh, Baker in session, tales old and brand new. Some make you laugh, some will leave you in a stew. Gavels dropping beats, witnesses take the stand. Join the fun, y'all, across this great land. Famous folks in hot seats, underdogs who win. We'll cheer the verdicts, dive right in. Coast to coast adventures in the name of the law. Baker's here to share it without a single flaw. Hit subscribe, don't miss the legal ride. Baker in session where the laughs collide. Hey, how radio roll.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome back to another impromptu stream. Because as you might have heard during my baking stream, there was a new filing in the wonderful Bristol Superior Court today. Karen Reed has sued, well, I kind of said the MSP. It's not the MSP. It's Bukhenik, Proctor, Tully, and Brian Higgins as civil in their civil role, and Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jennifer McCabe, and Matthew McCabe. It's a 46-page document, so if I miss what you're asking about in chat, I'm sorry. Please use the red question mark and I'll try and answer it, but I don't know more than you do. I'm just going to read it so we can all read it together. And excuse me if my voice gives up in the middle of all of it. Well, Jason, that's how the rules are. No, I didn't order a burger. I ate a few more of those lovely scones. Thank you, Brandon, for making me do them. You can just say Karen sued. No, I can't say that is beef leg. Shut up. Be nice. Come on now. But it's 46 pages. I got to page 4, and then I thought, because I thought I have these weird pressure headaches right now. I don't know if it's stress or it's my flu, but I'm going to slow down a little bit until this is gone. But on page 4, I thought, nope, we're going to do this live. And if any of you see anything in connection to the Turtle Boy lawsuit, I would love you to tell me, because yesterday was the final day for Cosgrove to file his motion, and he didn't file anything apparently within closing time. So are they just going to drop the case, or what is going to happen? Thank you so much, Bacon. Hey, Catnut Williams. Thoughts on McAlberts seeing Turtle Boy? I don't know what you are in relation to about that. Sorry, I am. I'm still fighting that. I think it's the kids. Hey, Jen. But complaint and defendants and complaint has a footnote. The first footnote is the Massachusetts State Police and Town of Canton will be added as defendants after presentment is made pursuant to GLC 258 and paragraph 4. So all of these people in their civil role and then the MSP and the Town of Canton will be sued as well. And plaintiff intends to move to consolidate this action with the related action estate of Jan O'Keefe et al. V. Reed et al. So she's trying to combine the cases just like we heard in court. This is a filing that we have been waiting for about 3 weeks, is when Alan Jackson told us it was hours away, but now it has finally dropped. And I can understand why it has taken so long, because like Marissa and the kids said, they probably had a lot of people with a lot of whiteboards trying to piece all of this together. It's going to be 46 pages. We're going to go through it. You know most of what's in here, because no matter what, a lot of the stuff you will hear here is what Aiden has been talking about. I'm just going to say that because there will be some people saying, oh, he didn't do nothing. If the McAlberts start suing people for defamation, Discovery is going to be off the charts. If these people want to be left alone, they need to shut up. I am pretty sure they're not going to sue anyone for defamation, because it's a very high bar to say that, well, you knew what you said was wrong. No, I didn't. I truly believe that you did this. My t-shirt says, these colors don't run. It's my 4th of July t-shirt I bought at Walmart. Someone is texting me. Squat Bob is sending a chicken pot pie. Thank you, Squat Bob. I don't think it's a coincidence this was filed the day after the McAlberts intended to sue Karen and Aiden. I think this is a very big coincidence because, as I said in the beginning, this is 3 weeks since AJ announced this. That article wasn't a new article. The journalist most likely had a heads up from the Karen Reed team. That's what you do. You use your PR team. And that's why he reached out to the McAlberts. I think that it's not the other way around, that she heard that and now I'm going to sue, because you don't do this in an afternoon. I can tell you, when you're done, you will see this has taken multiple people and multiple hours to go through all of this. But let's get to it. For 3.5 years, plaintiff Karen Reed was wrongfully accused of homicide and subject to suspicion, arrest, 2 prosecutions, and public condemnation, all resulting from the gross misconduct of the MSP and those working in tandem with the MSP to shield from liability the party or parties responsible for the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Now, after being acquitted of all charges relating to Mr. O'Keefe's death, Ms. Reed brings this action to recover for and address the action of those actually involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death and the law enforcement officer who abjectly failed to ensure that justice was sought and served in the aftermath of January 29th. Karen Reed did not kill her then boyfriend, Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, in the early morning hours of January 29th, Mr. O'Keefe was killed in defendant Brian and Nicole Albert's home at 34 Fairview Road in Canton, in an altercation during a late-night house party with other defendants, collectively the house defendants. After a night of heavy drinking, the house defendants responsible for Mr. O'Keefe's death, some of whom had professional experience with police investigations, concocted a plan immediately after the altercation to avoid culpability and to frame Karen Reed. Rather than call first responders for help, among other actions, the House defendants conducted a Google search for information about hoes long to die in the cold, moved Mr. O'Keefe's body outside, and placed him on the Alberts front lawn near the road to make it look like Mr. O'Keefe was hit by a vehicle and that he died in the snow without ever coming into the house that night. Mr. O'Keefe's body remained on the Alberts lawn until Karen Reed found him later that morning. Let's just say that's a pretty good opening 1-2 punch to come in with. They are not mincing words with this one. From the beginning, investigators from the MSP allowed the House defendants to direct the investigation away from themselves and towards Ms. Reed. The House defendants were well-connected and close social group with strong ties to law enforcement. The McAlberts are a prominent family in Canton, and investigating police officers knew them well. The lead investigator, Michael Proctor, grew up in Canton and resides there to this day. He has been and remains close personal friends with the Albert family. House defendant Brian Albert was a longtime Boston PD officer, and House defendant Brian Higgins was an agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Adhering to the unwritten rule of protecting their own, Proctor and his MSP colleagues intentionally disregarded the obvious and compelling evidence tying the House defendants to Mr. O'Keefe's murder. Specifically, Mr. O'Keefe's injuries was consistent with a physical altercation. He had bruises and lacerations on his face and a deep gash to the back of his head, suggesting that he was punched and fell backwards, hitting his head on a ridged surface. He also had dog bite wounds and scratches on his right arm and forearm. Equally evident, Mr. O'Keefe did not have a single injury consistent with being struck by a vehicle. He did not have any broken bones or even a bruise on his legs, feet, arms, shoulders, torso, back ribs, or anywhere below his neck that a medical examiner would otherwise expect to find on a person struck and killed by an impact from a 3-ton vehicle. And to erase any doubt, the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, the pathologist who conducted the autopsy for the Commonwealth, concluded that Mr. O'Keefe's body showed no signs of a vehicle strike. All of this is what we all know. But all of this is also what they couldn't really say this open in the criminal trial. This is, I think this is going to work way better with a civil jury, that there's no injuries consistent with him being hit by anyone. Higgins was an ATF agent, was being the big word. Bukhenik, do you have any evidence of that, or is it just a rumor? Because I haven't seen any evidence so far. I've seen a lot of rumors about people being fired, but I haven't seen any hard evidence so far about people losing their jobs. There's been a lot of rumors, but sadly not enough facts to prove it. But he should lose his job because he broke federal laws with his download of his phone. The scones were fine, Iris. Despite Proctor and others shielded the House defendants by intentionally sidestepping fundamental investigatory procedures, propelled by the House defendants' false statements, including that Mr. O'Keefe never went into the house, Proctor reported in text messages just hours into investigation that the House defendants weren't going to get any shit for this because Brian Albert, he's a Boston cop, Brian Albert, and that Proctor was determined to make the investigation cut and dry by bringing charges against the girl. Indeed, Proctor made his intention clear in writing. Karen Reed had zero chance of skating. She's fucked. This pronouncement was a mere 16 hours after Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn, and Proctor had not even walked into the house. True to his promise, Proctor and his colleagues did not search the house for blood evidence resulting from the gash to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, or for fingerprints, or for DNA evidence. Proctor did not search the house despite the fact that Mr. O'Keefe was discovered without a winter coat, without the hat that several witnesses said he had been wearing that night, and without his left shoe. At Proctor's direction, The house was never processed by a criminalist or even photographed. No member of the MSP, including Proctor, set foot inside 34 Fairview for nearly a week. The police did not examine or take evidence from the Alberts German Shepherd that was in the house on January 29th, a dog that had a history of attacking other dogs and people. Neither Proctor nor any of the MSP troops conducted physical examinations of the house defendants for evidence of involvement in the altercation, such as marks on their hands, knuckles, or face, or bruises on their bodies. They did not seize or search the house defendants' phones. They conducted only perfunctory, unrecorded conversation with Proctor's friends and acquaintances without any attempt to corroborate their stories. They permitted would-be witnesses to communicate with each other and coordinate their stories before any formal interviews. They allowed critical evidence to be manipulated in some instances and outright destroyed others. In short, by focusing the investigation solely on Miss Reed as implicitly directed by the House defendants through the misrepresentations they made to police, Proctor and his colleagues disregarded and failed to obtain pertinent interviews and other critical evidence from the House defendants that cannot now be recovered or recreated. Proctor also secretly communicated with the Alberts on his personal phone. That's going to be interesting to see, because we know now that they have all of Proctor's stuff. So this is going to be very interesting if, because we didn't really see any of this in the criminal trial. They only said that he had it through his sister. They didn't directly communicate. So that's going to be a little weird if they find it now. SAC is allowed to SAC here. Yeah. One of the few places that allows SAC to SAC. Yes. Well, it's because he's my ADA appointed weirdo. Deliberately back-channeling those communications to circumvent his state-issued device and use his sister as a conduit. Oh, so he didn't directly communicate it. Sorry. For instance, on multiple occasions, Proctor disclosed critical and confidential information about the investigation to his sister, who passed that information to her close friend, Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law. Julie Albert then passed the same information on to the rest of her family and house defendants. Parts of these communications included Julie Albert's promise to buy Proctor a thank you gift for handling this investigation in a manner that intentionally avoided implicating the house defendants and singly focused on Miss Reed. Proctor then went so far as to manufacture evidence that ensured Miss Reed, not his friends or fellow law enforcement officers, was blamed for Mr. O'Keefe's death. This included planting evidence at the scene, on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes, and on Miss Reed's vehicle to support a false narrative that Miss Reed hit Mr. O'Keefe with her car, even though he knew Mr. O'Keefe's injuries was inconsistent with a motor vehicle strike and consistent with physical altercation and dog attack. Interesting. Who's trying to stifle SAC? I don't know. Proctor's phone is going to be very interesting. Yes. Proctor, even though he's not singing, might be the one who sings through his phone and is going to make the whole card house fall down. But as far as I can tell, have we heard more about communications to Julie Albert other than the one with the gift? I don't believe that. Did we hear that during the trial? I only remember talking about the gifts because, oh yeah, she took care of his kids or something like that. Far from conducting an objective investigation with integrity, Proctor personally sexualized and dehumanized Miss Reed throughout the investigation. Specifically, Proctor's private communication to his high school buddies, sister, and MSP colleagues that he believed would never be discovered, exposed to corruption and bias at the core of MSP's entire investigation. Specifically, only hours into the investigation, in a text chain with 8 of his high school buddies, Proctor stated that Miss Reed was a whack job C word, retarded, a nutbag, and a babe with no ass. Proctor further ridiculed and derided Miss Reed for her serious medical condition, stating that her balloon knot leaked poop. In other private text messages to his MSP supervisors and colleagues, Proctor bragged that while conducting the search of Miss Reed's phone, he was looking for naked pictures of Miss Reed. Disappointed, he reported that there was no nude so far. In an unfiltered utterance, Proctor revealed his true mindset. Hopefully, she takes herself out. YouTube words is needed. Sorry. I recall it in the trial. I just don't. Indeed, Proctor's supervisors and the MSP knew about and condoned Proctor's unlawful conduct, and in some instances expressly encouraged this flagrant abuse of power. For example, on one occasion, Proctor's immediate supervisor, Bukhenik, responded with a thumbs up emoji to a text calling Miss Reed retarded. Proctor's supervisors and the MSP knew Proctor had a close relationship with the Alberts and that he made no secret of his bias against Miss Reed, demonstrating a clear prejudice against her from the outset. Relying on manufactured evidence, actively ignoring exculpatory evidence, and without investigating obvious signs pointing towards the House defendants, the Commonwealth secured 2 separate arrest warrants for Miss Reed and a knowingly baseless indictment against her, and then wrongfully prosecuted her for murder twice. As alleged below, these unlawful acts not only underlie plaintiffs' meritless wrongful death claims against Miss Reed, but they also form the foundation for Miss Reed's claims against the defendants. These acts violated Miss Reed's state and federal constitutional rights, Massachusetts civil rights, and well-established Massachusetts tort principles. On June 18th, after a 2-month trial, a jury rejected the Commonwealth's theory, in part because an overwhelming physical, scientific, and medical evidence established that Miss Reed's vehicle did not strike Mr. O'Keefe, and that Mr. O'Keefe's injuries did not come from a vehicle strike. Although Miss Reed was ultimately and finally acquitted of all charges related to the death of Mr. O'Keefe, Proctor was fired, and nearly every MSP officer in Proctor's chain of command was disciplined for their egregious abuse and misdeeds. The Commonwealth still has not sought or provided justice, not to the O'Keefe family, not to the community at large, and certainly not to Miss Reed. I can only agree. In response, the Commonwealth has offered only empty platitudes instead of solutions. The head of MSP, Colonel Jeffrey Noble, stated, the events of the last 3 years have challenged our department to thoroughly review our actions and take concrete steps to deliver advanced investigative training, ensure appropriate oversight, and enhanced accountability. Under my direction as colonel, the state police has and will continue to improve in these regards. In an interview with the Boston Herald, Noble acknowledged the systemic nature of MSP's conduct in Miss Reed's case. I'm eyes wide open. With eyes wide open. I'm eyes wide open to a culture issue that I have concerns with as it relates to Trooper Proctor. These hollow words do nothing to right the devastating wrongs that have been visited on Miss Reed. Colonel Noble's words confess a sickness deep in the marrow of the MSP, but offer no remedy, no medicine, no relief to someone so brutally victimized by it. This is exactly what I've been saying the entire time. It's not a Proctor problem, it's a culture problem. I have been waiting so damn long for justice to be done. Justice will not be done, Venus Victor. It will not be done because they will close their eyes and keep closing their eyes. This could potentially show something, but just remember Matthew Farwell, who just had another filing today or yesterday, still claims Sandra Birdsmore was a self-deletion, and so does the state of Massachusetts. Justice will not be served until you Massachusetts choose someone to lead the crusade against this culture. And it's not going to be Duan or whatever her name is. You need to break away from this hellscape that Michael Morrissey has made and who the next DA will just continue. You need new eyes. You need new brooms. Oh, your fly's wide open. Well, I'm wearing shorts, so it's not open. On Wednesday, March 19th, following the public disclosure of Proctor's illegal and unethical conduct related to Ms. Reed's investigation, the MSP's trial board found Michael Proctor guilty of a Class A violation, which included that he was biased in his dealings with a homicide suspect and or brought otherwise himself and the Massachusetts State Police into disrepute. Ms. Reed's life was not merely turned upside down by the MSP and the House defendant's misconduct, it was forever changed by the defendant's transgressions and wrongdoing. The years of uncertainty and unimaginably emotional distress has left lasting scars that will never heal. At the same time, neither Mr. O'Keefe nor his family has received justice. His killer or killers still walk free. By asserting her claims against MSP, Proctor, his supervisors, the town of Canton, and the House defendants, Ms. Reed seeks at minimum to confront and redress these wrongs and others. More importantly, she seeks to force the Commonwealth to fulfill its duty to stop law enforcement from trampling the innocent to protect their own. Yes, that is what I've been saying and what a lot of other people has been saying. Everything about Massachusetts seemed corrupt. That is because, not to get political, but it is because of politics. And it will be the same in red states as in blue states. So don't come at me. It's because I love one or the other. If you have ultimate power, you will have ultimate corruption. Ultimate power corrupts. You just can't have a system with no opponents, with no checks and balances, where the same good old boy club, time after time after time, are the ones who point to who is going to be ordained as the next DA, the next governor, the next whatever it is. You have a big old problem that you will never change as long as the good old boys club. Because remember, the people who got Michael Morrissey the job for 25 years are exactly the same people who are going to appoint the next DA. So you might fire Michael Proctor or you might fire Michael Morrissey, but the gnome is still living in the attic because the new DA who's going to move in is appointed by the people who for 25 years thought Michael Morrissey is running this office perfectly. So as we say in Denmark, the gnome doesn't move out. It'll stay there and it'll keep doing its own old tricks. Who wrote this brief? It's very well written. I've written many briefs and this is very well written. I'm not going to skip to, well, it's page 8. I just started page 8. Maybe I can see it. It's filed by it's filed by Damon Seligson and Alan Jackson. Who wrote it? It could be whoever. I don't know. So just remember that, because you don't get to vote who gets to be the next DA. That's a small group of party soldiers who will tell you who the next DA is going to be. Parties. Footnote. As stated above, MSP will be added as a new party by amendment once the applicable presentment period expires. Plaintiff Karen Reed is an individual residing in North Dighton. Defendant Michael Proctor, former MSP, residing in Canton. He's been sued in his personal capacity. Bukhenik from Stoughton, sued in personal capacity. Tully, Higgins, personal capacity. Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, Brian Higgins. The jurisdiction and venue. This court has jurisdiction over all claims and with regard to the federal claims pursuant to Resnick v. Chief of Police. Venue is appropriate in this court pursuant to MGL 223, paragraph 1, because at least one party of this case, plaintiff Ms. Reed, resides in Bristol County. Facts common to all counts. Now we are getting into the fact of the matter. This is what it's all based on. This was the foreplay. We just got why they are filing the lawsuit. Now we're getting into what the Karen Reed team believes are the facts supporting these lawsuits. Sorry. Mr. O'Keefe's death. Before his death, Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed were dating. On the evening on January 28, Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed went out for the night. They first went to CF McCarthy's, where they had several drinks. They then went to the Waterfall Bar. There they met with a group of acquaintances, including Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Chris Albert, Julie, Jennifer McCabe, who's Nicole's sister and Brian's sister-in-law, Matthew McCabe, and Brian Higgins. The group of acquaintances had several drinks and planned to continue the party back at the Alberts home in Canton at 34 Fairview. House defendant Jennifer McCabe told John O'Keefe that he should come to the house. The group had overlapping social relationships. At the time, Brian Albert was a Boston PD, as was Mr. O'Keefe, though they did not know each other well. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were close friends. Higgins was an officer with the ATF. He also were permitted to keep an office at the CPD, alongside Brian Albert's brother, CPD Detective Kevin Albert. Kevin Albert had a professional and social relationship with Michael Proctor. Thank you, In Limousine, for becoming a member. Brian and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., and his friends was already at the house for Brian Jr.'s birthday. In addition, Colon Albert, Brian Albert's nephew, was present. Notice Colon Albert is not being sued. Miss Reed and Mr. O'Keefe had never been to the house before January 29th. They arrived in front of the McAlberts house around 12:20. Miss Reed was reluctant to attend the party for several reasons, including that she was unsure whether they were at the correct location and whether they were even welcome at the late-night party. Mr. O'Keefe got out of Miss Reed's SUV and indicated that he would check out the party and report back to her. Mr. O'Keefe walked toward the front door garage door area of the house and entered one of the two doors. A period of time passed without any word from Mr. O'Keefe. Miss Reed, who was still hesitant to join, presumed that Mr. O'Keefe intended to stay, and therefore she left to go out home without her, pissed off like an angry bee in a bonnet. But we have all had that experience with our significant others. At some point after entering the house garage of Mr. O'Keefe was involved in a physical altercation either inside the house or garage. During this altercation, the Alberts German Shepherd attacked him, and Mr. O'Keefe sustained multiple dog bites and scratches on his right arm. He also suffered an incapacitating counter-coup wound on the back of his head. Is this a real word? Incapacitating counter-coups are severe traumatic brain injuries. Okay, thank you. It's just a weird word. Mr. O'Keefe's head wound was caused by falling backward and striking a rigid surface. I always say, when I saw it and I saw the basement, I don't know how many of you who works out, but they had a weight bench down in the basement, and when I saw that and I saw the injury to the back of his head, this is a weight bench, and as you can see, there's on the bar, you have like this little thing to catch the bar when you're benching. This is in enlargement. And I said, it looks kind of like that hit him in the back of his head, that he fell backwards onto that. It just have the ones we have at my gym would fit perfectly with the. I even think I measured it once to see how wide it was, and I think it fits perfectly with the injury to the back of his head. That's the one I thought. It was the weight bench 100%. Yeah, I don't believe that it was someone hitting him with a dumbbell, as other people have said, because there's a shape to it that would kind of these are a little rounded on the edges, and I could see if the dog attacked him and he fell backwards onto the bench or onto the stanchion, that it could have severely hit him. No, the concrete step, again, look at the shape of the wound. It's not consistent with a long edge. You can go into the Discord and see the wounds, because the wound is not that big. If you have a wide step compared, I can't do this because it's opposite. I would say this small, because it's about this wide on a bench. So yes, kid. Thank you, Jenny77, for becoming a member. The kid is going to share a link. I don't know if you know Nate the lawyer. Nate the lawyer is one of the OG law tubers. He sadly had passed out twice in a day when he went in to have his head checked, and they found out he had a brain tumor. His good friend is trying to boost his channel out there and ask everyone to help get him as close as we can to 1 million subscribers for when he gets out of surgery. He was supposed to have emergency surgery. It then got postponed, and we thought, oh, that's a good thing. But apparently it's because it's a massive tumor. And if you talk to the big guy up there, Nate the lawyer could use you to maybe put a good word in to him, for him. And I can't say I know him. I've seen him online, and he seems like a good guy, funny guy. And no matter if we like or dislike people, we don't wish them anything like this. It's over 700,000 right now. So the kid has shared a link. I think you can pin it yourself. That you can go and sign up and help him. Hey, anime. And Sebastian Mueller, thank you for 21 months and saying praying for Nate. Yes. We don't know. We don't know what type of tumor. But the link is at the top of the description. So if you want to go help while he's in the hospital, and hopefully the big guy will make sure that the surgeon has the most secure hands. Sorry, it was just an intermission, but I think we can do both. We can multitask. We are smart people. So if you would consider it, please and thank you. And again, if you have a relationship with the big guy up there, maybe mention Nate and say, make sure his surgeons are the best you can get. During that altercation, the Alberts German Shepherd attacked him, and O'Keefe sustained multiple dog bites and scratches. We suffered that. The McAlberts garage contained such surfaces. By contrast, the head wound could not have been caused by a vehicle strike or falling backward onto a flat, cold lawn like the Alberts. Because of their knowledge of criminal investigation, the Alberts, the McCabe's, and Higgins house defendants knew that calling for medical care to help save O'Keefe would trigger immediate and irreversible risk of their own criminal exposure. Therefore, at least the 5 of them agreed on a simple plan to exonerate themselves and implicate Miss Reed. would tell anyone who inquired. Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house and hid evidence that he was there, including his body. Sometime during the night, they repositioned a Ford Edge vehicle at a spot adjacent to the front lawn, which obscured the view of that area of the lawn from potential passerbys. At some point further in the night, they carried or dragged Mr. O'Keefe's body to that same area in the yard, close to where one or more of them later claimed Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe earlier that night. The plan was devised to make it appear that Mr. O'Keefe had been struck by Miss Reed's vehicle and then died as a result of exposure to the cold. Mr. O'Keefe was either dead when the house defendant left him on the Alberts lawn or he died shortly thereafter. After the physical altercation, Higgins left the house and drove to the Canton PD in the middle of the night. He later told investigators he had to do some administrative work, but then changed his story subsequently, stating that he drove to the station because he had to move cars in the parking lot due to the snowstorm. However, video from inside the station show Higgins walking down the hallway and surreptitiously, I can't say that word, entering offices while wearing a hoodie to obscure his face. Surveillance videos outside reveals Higgins transporting a large bag from one vehicle to another before driving away. After leaving the police station, Higgins and Brian Albert continued to coordinate their stories by calling each other multiple times in the early morning hours and ultimately spoke with each other on their cell phones at 2:22 a.m. Later, both Brian Albert and Higgins denied the existence of these phone calls, and then, when confronted with their existence by a separate law enforcement, a non-MSP and non-CPD law enforcement agency, at a separate proceeding, they coordinated the same exact lie, falsely claiming that multiple calls and answers were just butt dials. However, 5 minutes after the Higgins-Albert call, Miss McCabe performed a Google search on her phone at 2:27. Hose long to die in the cold, misspelling the first word. Miss Reed searches for Mr. O'Keefe. Miss Reed began the search for Mr. O'Keefe on January 29th, just before 5 a.m., when she awoke and realized he had not returned home. She phoned house defendant Jennifer McCabe, who already knew exactly what had happened to Mr. O'Keefe. Miss McCabe insisted that Miss Reed drive to McCabe's house rather than driving to Fairview 34, which Reed did. The two of them were then joined by Carrie Roberts, and the three of them left the McCabe's residence. However, rather than go to the 34 Fairview, oddly, Miss McCabe directed them to go back to the O'Keefe home, where Miss Reed had just come from. And I think this is a good point, because that never made sense. I have just been in my house. I'm totally flabbergasted. Where is he? I'm going to drive over to McCabe, and McCabe says, "Are you sure you looked in the cupboard?" "Oh, let's go home and look again." That's, again, remember the bar is way lower in the civil court. Brian Jr., what's happening? Why was Brian Jr. not interviewed and very rarely mentioned, even though he was also at the house? I am misremembering. He was testifying in the courtroom. He was the one who had the birthday with all the girls, and I don't think it was because he liked their tatas. Because why would you look for someone who is missing the last place that you saw them? Yeah, and exactly. Why would you go back and look at the place you had just looked? Why would you're calling? First of all, she was so upset, and I had to calm her down, and I made coffee before she came over, and I was kind of cavalier about it. And then she came over and she was out of her mind. That never sat right with me. That's not, if your longtime friend and one of your dearest friends in the world is gone missing. First of all, you wake up your fat ass husband and say, "I'm going to go to Karen's house and help her look." You're going to go get a hold of Brian Albert and say, "Is John at your house? We're missing him. We need to go out and find John. It's snowing outside. He could have fallen over. He was pretty drunk last night." That's how you would do it, because you're a normal human being. This cesspool of idiots Not one man woke up and helped any of the wives. Not one wife did what every wife I have ever known would do: tell their fat ass husband to get out of bed and start moving. Ladies, don't tell me you wouldn't have kicked your husband out of bed and said, get a move on. And husbands, don't tell me when she heard Karen Reed apparently screaming, Jan, 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 and you could hear it as well, you wouldn't have said, oh my God, this is wrong. I'm going to put on some clothes. I'm going to go with you out looking. That's how you. And why would you get all three in one car? Why didn't you say, well, someone get on the horn, get the rest of the people who were there? Even if you think he was out fucking that Stacy's mom's got it going on. Bella's mom. You fucking get on the horn with Bella's mom and say, hey, did he lay pipe at your house last night? Because we can't find him and we're kind of worried. Even after they found him on the lawn, Brian didn't go to see what was happening. Everything was just so wrong. Well, he was sleeping, First respond. What happened? Did I lose connection? No. What the hell happened? I hope you can still see me because something just dropped. I hope I'm back. I think I'm back. Sorry. Internet is, we had a Cloudflare or something has been on a massive attack. So a lot of websites are not that stable today. We see you. Thank you, Marissa. The illogical McCabe-directed route to 34 Fairview was intentional. It allowed the House defendant more time to finish creating the scene and hiding evidence before Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered at the Alberts lawn and first responders arrived. As they approached the house, Miss Robert driving, Miss Reed saw Mr. O'Keefe almost immediately. She screamed for Miss Roberts to stop the vehicle and jumped from the moving car to run to Mr. O'Keefe. She began rendering aid, including CPR. As the House defendants had planned, Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered in front of the Alberts house near a flagpole and a fire hydrant on the left side of the Alberts property, as seen from the roadside. The Ford Edge, which has been parked in a position to obscure Mr. O'Keefe's body in the middle of the night, had been moved. While Miss Roberts joined Miss Reed in administrating CPR, Miss McCabe did not help or even approach Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, she sat in the cab of the vehicle, called 911, and reported that there's a man passed out in the snow. Despite knowing that her brother-in-law, Brian Albert, a police officer and first responder, was just feet away inside the house, Miss McCabe never went into the house or requested that Albert came down to help Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, as Mr. O'Keefe lay dying in the snow, Miss McCabe stood and watched with no fear, urgency, or even concern for her family members residing mere feet away. Investigation begins. The CPD were the first on the scene shortly after 6 a.m. At the time, there was no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a vehicle. In fact, the evidence suggested just the opposite. His body did not show any signs of trauma commonly associated with being struck by a car. There were no bone fractures or trauma to his lower body, his torso, or any other parts of his body, as investigators would expect from a vehicle strike. Rather, Mr. O'Keefe's injuries was consistent with being physically assaulted to the face and head, and attacked by a dog. For good reason, the ranking CPD officer on the scene, Sergeant Michael Lang, opined on a telephone call captured on a dash cam that Mr. O'Keefe looked like he had been in a fight. Moreover, the initial search conducted by Canton PD revealed that there were no vehicle debris on the lawn on 34 Fairview, let alone any debris at or near Mr. O'Keefe's body. Not a single piece of tail light material was discovered on the lawn that morning or in the roadway, notwithstanding multiple searches and the use of a leaf blower to remove snow. And this is where we all started watching the trial and thinking, are you absolutely stupid? Tellingly, despite the commotion outside, including more than a dozen first responders, 3 police cruisers, 2 ambulances, a ladder fire engine, and all with their emergency lights flashing, and at least 2 civilian vehicles, plus Miss Reed's screams upon finding Mr. O'Keefe's body. No one from the Albert house, including police officer Brian Albert, ever went outside to see what was happening, let alone help. They wanted to avoid scrutiny from the police investigators. Sergeant Lang was a longtime friend of the Alberts and the first law enforcement officer to enter the house. He spoke to the Alberts and McCabe's. Pursuant to their plan, the Alberts and McCabe's told Sergeant Lang that Mr. O'Keefe had never entered the Alberts' house the night before. The Alberts and McCabe's statement were false. Mr. O'Keefe arrived at and entered the house or garage where he was assaulted, attacked by the Alberts dog, and suffered a fatal injury to the back of his head. Despite Mr. O'Keefe's injury being wholly inconsistent with the story the House defendant were now telling him, neither Lang nor any other member of the CPD searched the house to determine whether the occupants or anyone else were involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death. Nor did they request to search the occupants' cell phones, observe their bodies for evidence of a fight, or even secure the scene where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found. They failed to do so because of bias born of friendship and loyalty in favor of the McAlberts and McCabe's. Alberts and McCabe's. I've been saying it too many years. After Lang returned to the CPD, 3 hours after the discovery of Mr. O'Keefe's body, and more than 2 hours after being interviewed at the Alberts home that morning, Miss McCabe called Sergeant Lang to report that she recalled additional information. As part of the plan to implicate Miss Reed and remove suspicion from the House defendant, she falsely told Sergeant Lang that Miss Reed told her twice that morning, "I hope I didn't hit him." More than a year later, at a separate proceeding, Miss McCabe changed the story on the topic yet again, in furtherance of the House defendant's plan. Miss McCabe then falsely reported that Miss Reed outright confessed to hitting Mr. O'Keefe right after she first found him in the snow. Interesting, they include specific scenarios. They must have something that can back this up. That's all I can say. This is when you see this. This is very consistent with all the information that Aiden has been sharing over the last 3 years. This maybe this is because it's at the civil trial where the bar is a little lower for the evidence and stuff like that, that you can allege more things that you don't have to prove it in the same manner. Maybe it's because Bev wouldn't allow them to pursue these things, but this is very precise what they believe happened that night, and it's going to be interesting to see the evidence they can produce. Yeah, it can't just be defaming for the sake of it. No, they can't do that in a criminal filing. Why would there be any blood that was not on the grass? There wouldn't be any at all on the snow. No. Again, there's a lot of problems if you just use your brain. What time will we get a real legal analysis on the suit, like Twisted Tragedies? She just have to cover. I know she never ever does that, but she's just have to cover 3.5 hours of Aiden, her Amazon wish list, and how you should pay her because she is actually doing all of this for you. She's just have to cover that, and then she might say, "Yeah, it's bullshit. I'm smarter than Yannetti," which you all know she is. The evidence we've seen so far fits this scenario better than what the state tried to push. I'm agreeing with you, Jessica Bacon, but it's very precise what they line up that they will have to prove in court. Proctor leads MSP investigation despite conflicts. Proctor was assigned as the case officer and had primary primary responsibility for the MSP investigation of Mr. O'Keefe's death. Bukhenik was Proctor's direct supervisor. Tully was the supervisory officer at the Norfolk County State Police Detective Unit and thus supervised both Bukhenik and Proctor. In their roles, Bukhenik and Tully both knew at all times exactly the extent of Proctor's misconduct in investigating Mr. O'Keefe's death, and as described below. From the beginning, Proctor should never have been assigned as an investigating officer, let alone the lead investigator. He grew up and resides in Canton, is a good friend of the Alberts, and have known the family for years. Proctor and Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, had each other's personal cell phone numbers. In fact, just days before Mr. O'Keefe's death, Proctor communicated with Julie Albert about babysitting Proctor's minor child. Proctor's sister, Courtney, was also a close friend of Julie. In fact, Proctor's own mother referred to the Alberts as the Proctor's second family. The existence of these relationships was intentionally suppressed by Proctor and other members of the MSP, including Bukhenik and Tully, in an effort to ensure that the House defendants was protected and that Ms. Reed's right to a fair investigation and trial were undermined. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully engaged in a corrupt and biased investigation by not investigating inside the House and interviewing House defendants as friends rather than suspects. Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, and the MSP never searched for DNA evidence inside the house, never looked for rigid surfaces that could have caused the gash to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, never inspected the House defendants' bodies for indications of bruises and cuts that resulted from an altercation, and did not search the House defendant's cell phone. This allowed potential evidence to be destroyed, disposed of, removed, or simply become unrecoverable. What the hell is that? Walking to. I don't know what this name is. I can't figure that one out because of the stupid YouTube names. Remember, it's a civil case. They don't need beyond a reasonable doubt. They just need a story that's more believable than the other 50% plus one. Exactly. The bar is way different, and they can do more in front of the jury. And they won't have Beth as the final gatekeeper. I think that's going to be a very big difference. As walking, talking Steve Hawking. Thank you, the kid. Yes, it's 100% bullshit. They weren't all close. No one from this area would see the connection and not believe they were all friends. Exactly. Everyone went to high school together. Everyone probably dated each other. Everyone took care of each other's kids, had kids at the same school. There's no way any of these people should have been connected to anything that the McAlberts had to do with. Do I have allergies? No, I have some sniffle going on, or maybe I'm just stressed out. So I was with my grandson the other day, and since then I've been feeling a little under the weather. But I thought this was so good that we needed to cover it. So I'm just gonna soldier through. Then I'm gonna go sleep, and then I'm gonna join a stream to raise some funds for Kelsey Fitzsimmons tonight at 6 p.m. And I've already forgotten the name of it because it's ours. I'm so sorry. I'm such a bad guest. The channel is called Law Girls, Not Attorneys, where I will be joined by Emily C., Brother Counsel, and the amazing Ian Runkle, who just raised almost 100,000, if not already past 100,000, raised for children's charities in Canada. So Law Girls, Not Attorneys is where it's the place to be at 6 p.m. Eastern tonight. Try going out, coming back in again. There's the YouTube is hasn't been that struck by it, but there's a lot of things with that Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a security program that has been hit today, so there's probably a lot of spillover from everything. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully's interviews of the House defendant was also outside of the normal protocol. They were all interviewed either in their home, their family member's home, their lawyer's home, in the case of Brian Higgins, their lawyer's office, in the case of Brian Jr. and Caitlin Albert, their place of employment, or over the phone. These interviews were each untimely, unrecorded, and fundamentally designed to protect the House defendants, and the House defendants took full advantage of it. This is one of the things. You have a goddamn phone. Every phone today has a recording device on it. How can you not say, well, I don't have my dictaphone. I'm just going to put my phone down here. Hello, this is Sergeant Tully. It's 2:27 a.m. I am at Bukhenik's house. And then you're going to record it. Isn't it magical that they had none of this? Why don't you call them to the police station? No, we don't need that. We don't need that. It's nothing. Stop it. Yeah, Stollery Children's Hospital in Edmonton, Alberta, is where he raised a ton of money for, and it's so amazing that he does it every year. Specifically, Jen McCabe became the point person for the House defendants in providing their false narrative to investigators. She managed and communicated details about the House defendants' messaging and the investigation itself, including visiting Proctor's and other investigators' private residences, mapping out timelines to coordinate statements with other witnesses, leading group text message chains that was later partially deleted, and planning private meetings at all hours of the day and night. Indeed, these were never the acts of innocent witnesses seeking to help an investigation concerning the death of an alleged friend. Rather, they were predicate acts of a conspiracy among a group of people with a shared goal of deflecting their criminal exposure to someone else. Thank you, anime. The remaining group texts were not deleted, or that were recovered later revealed some of their planning. For instance, on the evening on January 29th, Jennifer McCabe texted with her sister Nicole Albert that Carrie Roberts, who were present when Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, talked to the cops and kept it simple. Of course, there would be no reason to report back to the other House defendants about Roberts keeping it simple unless what really happened was more complicated. Proctor, Bukhenik, and the MSP never sought these communications. Rather, they were obtained by Karen Reid's defense attorney's repeated motion to compel access to data on Ms. McCabe's iPhone. Later, in the group text with Jen McCabe and Brian and Nicole Albert, Matthew McCabe suggested having Chris Albert publicize their crafted story to a reporter, saying, "Ask Chris to ask some questions. Tell them the guy never went in the house." As an endorsement of the plan, Brian Albert responded, "Exactly." Oh, I want to see all of these texts. That's what I'm going to do. I really want to get into that. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I want to see that. iPhone can even record your call and transcribe it for you. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Hey, Miss Mandy, how are you doing? Importantly, the text message from the House defendant's phone that were ultimately recovered and that provided a window into the conspiracy and misconduct, as well as MSP's unlawful investigation, were not the product of the CPD or MSP investigative work. Rather, based on media reports raising serious questions about the MSP investigation and the House defendant's role in Mr. O'Keefe's death, another separate law enforcement agency began its own subsequent investigation. Why can't they say FBI in this filing? I don't understand that. That investigation, and not MSP's, resulted in obtaining the House defendant's phones, taking statement from the House defendant, and conducting a separate proceeding, all of which MSP refused to do itself. Indeed, the evidence procured by the separate law enforcement agencies investigation demonstrate the House defendant's conspiracy and unlawful conduct, as well as MSP's bias and corruption. Does anyone have an idea why they can't mention FBI now? It's not in front of a jury. Proctor and Bukhenik initially interviewed the McCabe's and Brian Albert on January 29th at the McCabe's home on 12 County Lane in Canton, at which time they again falsely stated that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' home. Bukhenik and Proctor did not interview Nicole Albert and Brian Higgins until February 3rd, and did not interview Chris or Julie Albert until February 10th, nearly 2 weeks after O'Keefe's death and more than a week after Miss Reed was arrested and charged. Before both interviews, the McCabe's and Albert continued to coordinate their stories as evidence in group text. You're getting sued. You're getting sued. Everyone is getting sued. Thank you, Miss Mandy Rex. Yeah, this is a good day, I think. Abundance of caution, but what they can't prejudice anyone. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We all know. Yeah, it's not. We all know it's the FBI, but I'm just asking, why can't you mention the FBI? Maybe it has something. I know it's the evidence is still under a certain gag order, but it's just weird they can't mention it. Nothing much, Mikey. Just a lot of reading. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully likewise failed to conduct a meaningful investigation into Higgins' involvement. When Proctor and Bukhenik interviewed Higgins on February 3rd, Higgins presented the troopers with a select set of self-curated texts between him and Miss Reed. They learned that Higgins and Miss Reed had been exchanging flirtatious texts, and that Higgins reported at least one instance in which Miss Reed and Higgins has kissed while at Mr. O'Keefe's house mere weeks before his death. Well, rather than pursuing Higgins as a possible suspect, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully neglected to investigate the matter further. They never interviewed Higgins again, even after surveillance videos revealed Higgins was suspiciously hiding his face in the halls and the parking lot of the CPD at 1:30 on January 29th. The video contradicts Higgins' statements about his action that night. However, not only did Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully and MSP not investigate what Higgins was doing or what was in the bag, what's in the box, but they went so far as to hide this video from Karen Reed and her criminal defense attorneys for years. Reed's defense did not receive these videos until after Reed stood trial for the first time. And even after the separate law enforcement agencies' investigation revealed late-night phone calls between Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, MSP failed to pursue either witness further or seek a full forensic extraction of Higgins' phone, or even a simple call log from his cellular provider. When it was revealed that Miss Reed's defense team requested the preservation of Brian Albert's and Higgins' phones in order to forensically image them, this request was allowed by the court. Both men got rid of their phones within days of one another. Higgins went so far to drive to a military base on Cape Cod, remove the SIM card from the phone, cut the SIM card with scissors he brought with him, and destroy and dispose of the phone and card separately in 2 dumpsters and then drive back home. This destruction of their phones eliminated potential incriminating communications between them and was a direct result of Proctor's, Bukhenik's, and Tully's intentional refusal to collect important investigative evidence that would be exculpatory to Miss Reed. Even after learning about these destruction of both witnesses' cell phones, MSP investigators had other avenues they could have used to pursue evidence, such as a cellular toll records or simply interviewing Brian Higgins and Brian Albert to inquire about the nature of late-night communications. They intentionally ignored these avenues as well. Not only did Proctor fail to probe his friend's stories, he coordinated with them through his sister. Proctor spoke to Courtney multiple times a day and knew she was in close contact with and providing information to Julie Albert. Julie and Courtney called each other many times between February 1st and 2nd, and at least 67 times between February 1st and September 6th. Jesus Christ, I don't think my phone has made 67 phone calls. For example, as he prepared to question Chris and Julie Albert on February 10th, Proctor told his sister Courtney that the interview was not a big deal. Courtney told Proctor that Julie had been nervous and wanted to give him a thank you gift after the interview. To avoid scrutiny, Proctor instructed Courtney to tell Julie to give the gift to his wife Elizabeth. Proctor shared investigatory details with Courtney before they were public. In the same instance referenced above, when his sister informed him that Julie Albert had been so nervous before the interview, instead of investigating further, he shrugged it off, laughed, and asked why. But Proctor knew exactly why Julie Albert was nervous. He sought to reassure her by telling Courtney that it was fine, just a quick convo. And then, after the interview, Proctor spoke to Julie on his personal cell phone in an unreported conversation. Proctor never treated the Alberts as witnesses in a murder investigation. He treated them like family friends that they were. At one point, leading up to some of the interviews, Miss McCabe asked Nicole Albert if she had heard anything more about the investigation, confident she would learn more from Julie Albert, again through Courtney. Nicole Albert responded, "We'll get more info tomorrow. Don't want to text about it." At least that's smart. House defendants did not want to text about their activities and communications because they tried to hide and or lie about them. For instance, it was discovered in the second criminal trial that Miss McCabe had lied in her sworn testimony in the first trial about not visiting Fairview 34 with Kerry Roberts on January 30th on their way to Michael Lang's house. However, while they did not text about this meeting, McCabe's cell phone location data, obtained later by Reed's defense, revealed that she did, in fact, visit 34 Fairview just one day after O'Keefe's death and lied about it. The McAlberts, the McCabe, the McCabe's, Alberts, and Higgins. It's so weird not calling them the McAlberts. We've been so used to it. And Higgins all told the same false story to investigators in their interviews, and Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully accepted their coordinated statements without making efforts to corroborate these stories. Rather than investigate their friends and brethren, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully and MSP targeted Karen Reed. Instead of taking the routine, objective, and necessary step of investigating the McCabe's, Higgins, and the Alberts, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully focused exclusively on Miss Reed as a suspect from the start of the investigation, despite substantial evidence exonerating her and implicating others, just as the House defendants intended. You would think, right? And that's why when they are now in a part of this lawsuit, they are probably going to try to get the same access to them as they have with Higgins' phone. So we have to figure out that one. No, he withdrew his demand because his own union, after seeing his hundreds and thousands of data files, said, "Fuck it, we're out." Apparently, Michael Proctor, and we don't know this, we only have the rumors. Michael Proctor has a dislike for women, a dislike for people of an alternative sexuality, and of people of color, is what the rumor is in his phone. We don't know this yet. Most of it will probably never come out, but what will come out is probably hey Slidey, is probably not going to be good. A lot of people are expecting in the Walls case that's where it's going to come out. He just pled guilty to 2 of the charges today to probably try and keep some evidence out. But I'm looking forward to the Miles King case, because if he disliked black people, oh, that's going to be really interesting to see it in that case. Thank you, Laurie Wells. Think his wife might have left him after that too. Rumors. We haven't seen anything. Hey, Tom Gillis, how are you doing? Miss Garbage Brain, you are way too late. You are an hour late. You will have to do extra book reports. You and Tom Gillis need to to write 1,000 times, "I'm sorry, I'm late," and class will then have to grade you by your cursive. Proctor seized Miss Reed's cell phone and her SUV within 30 minutes of interviewing her on January 29th. He arrested her 72 hours later, before reviewing any surveillance from the bars or ring camera footage, before interviewing exculpatory witnesses, and before the medical examiner's official conclusion that the manner of death could not be determined and that there was no injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's body consistent with a vehicle strike. Much to Proctor's surprise, though the separate law enforcement agency's investigation, his contemporaneous text messages was discovered. Among them, Proctor texted with his high school friends on the evening on January 29th, the day he began his investigation. He told them that the MSP had already determined the Alberts were not going to receive any scrutiny about Mr. O'Keefe's death, even though the MSP had not at this point visited the crime scene or been inside the Alberts' home, and had performed only a cursory interview of the McAlberts and Brian Albert. McCabe's and Brian Albert, sorry. Proctor told his friend that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a car and had not been in a fight, despite the fact that Mr. O'Keefe had suffered no injuries consistent with vehicle strike. Remember, if you see a dead body with only one shoe, it means they have been hit by a car. That's police work. But he did have injuries consistent with a fight and dog attack. Proctor rejected a friend's belief that Brian Albert, the homeowner of the property where John O'Keefe's body was found, would receive some shit, instead agreeing with another friend's assumption that you guys, the MSP, are out to make it cut and dry since it involved cops. Proctor revealed that he had already decided he was going to put serious charges on Miss Reed, that she was fucked, and that there was zero chance she skates. From the outset, Proctor was determined to pin it on the girl. Proctor's supervisors were aware of his bias and conflicted relationships in his investigation. They didn't have to guess. Proctor told them. He told them he knew the Alberts. Text messages from Proctor to Bukhenik and other MSP troopers show Proctor had decided to focus suspicion on Miss Reed to the exclusion on everyone else. He told the troopers that Miss Reed was retarded and that he was searching for her phone, her phone for nudes of her. And I am reading the words. I'm not, because it's 46 pages. I'm not going to do the YouTube. So you have to live with all the bad words. If you have kids in the room, put in earbuds, because I'm just going to let it fly. It's a long read. In a text chain, Sergeant Bukhenik liked Proctor's text describing Miss Reed as retarded. But Bukhenik received Proctor's text and never reprimanded Proctor or addressed his improper bias and conduct. Because he was determined to put serious charges on Miss Reed, Proctor ignored the fact that the Commonwealth medical examiner could not conclude that Mr. O'Keefe's death was a homicide, determined instead that the manner of death could not be determined. The medical examiner also refused to conclude that Mr. O'Keefe died as a result of being struck by a vehicle, and later testified at trial that his injuries was not consistent with a car strike. Proctor later admitted that in his entire career he had never seen a homicide investigation where the medical examiner could not determine the manner of death, but he remained undeterred in his quest to charge Miss Reed. As he later admitted, the medical examiner's refusal to rule that a homicide did not matter to him, because either way, Miss Reed was going to be charged. Proctor and Bukhenik planned certain evidence. This they better have some evidence providing. This cover-up was obvious from day one. Proctor's actually telling you what he's going to do. Yes, I do believe so, that anyone who looked at it, who knows anything about police investigation, would see this and say, what's going on? Because it makes no sense when you look at it. Even if you only watch CSI or something, It's not a real investigation. Come on now. Oh, excuse me. I didn't know he was going on with the murder. He is going on. Walls is going on with the murder trial. There might potentially be, by admitting guilt to some of it, some evidence they can keep out, but I don't think it's going to be the hardcore evidence. They wouldn't put it in there if they didn't have evidence. Amanda, I know, but as I said earlier, this is a way different, because this is what Aiden has been reporting for 3 years, that they couldn't bring into the criminal court. Again, civil court has a way different bar, and this is why I wanted to go live, even though I've said that. Now I'll just do a summary because it reads really, really well. Why would the newly appointed attorney for the O'Keefes even take this case? It's a non-starter. It's all very odd. No way can she do it on a no-win, no-fee. Kirk's, maybe she didn't know enough about it. Maybe she just saw the publicity that could potentially come from it. Maybe she knows something we don't know. I can't tell you. But let's get into this part. Proctor made this investigation cut and dry by manufacturing a case against Miss Reed. A crucial first step was to ensure that the crime scene and evidence was not secure. We know this to be true. This is in violation of MSP policy and well-established best practices for critical incident investigations. Specifically, the MSP crime laboratory requires proper processing of evidence at major crime scenes, including crime scene photography and evidence processing and recovery of latent fingerprints, footwear, and tire track evidence. Neither the MSP troopers involved in the investigation nor the CPD police officers on the scene secured the McAlberts' home or the area where John O'Keefe's body was found. The MSP did not take any photographs of the house, including any part of the yard where O'Keefe's body was found, until February 1st, more than 3 full days later. No photographs were ever taken of the inside or garage of 34 Fairview. This intentional departure from established protocol permit Proctor and Bukhenik to generate false incriminating evidence against Miss Reed and give the House defendants time to destroy the actual evidence. By approximately 2:30 p.m. on January 29th, before he had even met or interviewed Miss Reed or seen her Lexus, Proctor had already ordered seizure of the vehicle at her parents' home in Dighton. By 4:17, the vehicle was in MSP's physical possession. The vehicle was then towed to the CPD Sallyport, even though the MSP has at least 2 closer barracks and Massachusetts was in the middle of a historic nor'easter. Proctor knew he had more leeway to manipulate evidence regarding the SUV at CPD than at an MSP's facility, and he knew he needed to have that evidence in close proximity to the crime scene at 34 Fairview. Before the vehicle arrived at the garage, Miss Reed's Lexus taillight had a minor crack but was intact. The crack occurred when Miss Reed backed into John O'Keefe's car at 5 a.m. that morning as she was leaving to search for him. That incident was captured on video. Bukhenik and Proctor followed the vehicle from Dayton and arrived at CPD at 5:35, just a moment after the tow truck with the Lexus. At some point after the vehicle arrived at the Sallyport, the right rear tail light was almost entirely destroyed. Video taken from differing angles in the Sallyport shows Bukhenik, Proctor, Canton Police Chief Ken Berkowitz, and other individuals near the tail light, but notably no video captures the tail light's appearance at the precise time it arrives at the Sallyport. The available surveillance videos from the Sallyport, as well as a CPD access card swipe log obtained by a separate law enforcement agency, reveal seemingly unfettered access to the Sallyport by a myriad of individuals throughout the evening on January 29th, including just before and just after 5:30. One or more of them destroyed the taillight, secretly took pieces of it into their possession, and then planted some of them in various places at 34 Fairview and on Mr. O'Keefe's close. Knowing that there were video cameras both inside and outside the Sallyport, Proctor and Bukhenik worked together to obscure their role in manipulating the right rear taillight, and then ultimately to present false evidence at the first criminal trial. Specifically, Proctor directed Bukhenik to secure video footage from surveillance camera located both inside and outside the Sallyport garage, which he did. These videos were manipulated in two significant ways. First, a critical 42-minute portion was deleted from the footage from the Sallyport front wall camera. The portion from 5:08:02 p.m. to 5:50:50 p.m., which included the exact time Miss Reed's Lexus arrived at the garage. This footage would have shown that the tail light was intact. Second, footage from the Sallyport back wall camera was inverted, which made the right side of Miss Reed's vehicle appear to be the left side, and vice versa. Another camera, main driveway side exterior, captured the back end of the Lexus as it arrived at the CPD, but was too grainy to decipher the condition of the passenger's tail light. The videos from inside and outside the Sallyport and Proctor's request for Bukhenik to obtain it was intentionally hidden from Karen Reed and her defense attorneys for more than 2 years to avoid scrutiny. The video was then sprung on them immediately before and during the first criminal trial. One driveway camera's footage was not revealed to the defense until just prior to the start of the second trial. In fact, Bukhenik presented one part of the video during his direct testimony under questioning by then District Attorney Adam Lally. Bukhenik narrated the jury to the video, correctly identifying that Proctor was at the rear of the vehicle, but claimed that he never approached the right rear taillight area of the vehicle. That testimony, however, was entirely false. As he well knew, the video that Bukhenik authenticated as fair and accurate was actually neither fair nor accurate because it had been inverted. Proctor was actually behind the right tail light for a significant period, but because it was inverted, it appeared in the video that he was behind the left tail light. They hoped this would allow Bukhenik to lie about this issue at trial without detection. With this video and Bukhenik's false testimony, the MSP, Proctor, and Bukhenik attempted to mislead the jury in order to conceal the tampering with and planting of tail light materials. The tow truck driver needs to be subpoenaed. He has to contact with the PD and choose money over truth. Well, maybe he just doesn't remember. We don't know. He didn't take any pictures. Proctor and Bukhenik also took taillight pieces from the Sallyport, brought them to 34 Fairview to plant them in the location where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, and then falsified various documents in an attempt to hide their conduct. In warrant applications to the Stoughton District Court and Norfolk Superior Court for searches of Google's electronic records, ring videos, Miss Reed's phone, Miss Reed's vehicle, cell tower records, and other sources of information, Proctor swore he seized Miss Reed's vehicle from her parents' home at 5:30 on January 29th and had the vehicle towed to the CBD. Reports shared with the Dighton Police Department revealed the Lexus was towed from Dighton at 4:17, so that's an hour and 13 minutes before he claimed. Proctor's assertion that he seized it at 5:30 was intentionally false to hide the fact that the car was in police custody for 73 minutes longer than indicated in his sworn affidavits. Proctor maintained that false narrative because it would hide the exact time frame when he had the opportunity to remove pieces of the taillight from Miss Reed's vehicle and bring them back to the house so that he could later claim the pieces had been there since approximately 12:30 on January 29th. However, unbeknownst to him, driveway video from the Reed residence in Dighton and a report written by the Dighton Police Report and a report written by the Dighton Police officer, I think is what it's supposed to say, revealed Proctor's lie and revealed the true and accurate time the Lexus SUV came into the MSP's possession. Question. Now I'm reading this with the do we think that they only tried to pry off pieces of the tail light and it just shattered too much? That's why we have the small pieces left out there that is found first, and then the big pieces because, oh fuck it, we broke the entire tail light. We just wanted maybe the small pieces that we could put in his clothes and put at the scene, but because they were too rough with it, it broke the entire tail light. That could be why all the big pieces come in there last, because we can't just, we need to get them to the scene so they can be found at the scene, but it's a little much to carry these big pieces. But it could, if you just jank in something and rip it up just to try and pry a little bit of the plastic and it just shatters because it's cold, I could see that happening. Proctor also deposited the SUV taillight pieces that he and others removed from the vehicle in the Sallyport at Mr. O'Keefe's close. Proctor retrieved Mr. O'Keefe's clothes from the floor at the hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Instead of securing the clothes in a sealed container or bag, as protocol requires, Proctor and Bukhenik drove them around in his car all day and then placed them in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office for at least 6 days, where they were accessible to Proctor, Bukhenik, and any other MSP trooper. Did we ever hear from the cop who removed the whole tail light? Yes, we heard in the first one. And he found out later that he could have removed it without breaking more stuff. Proctor and Bukhenik failed to create a log to document the chain of custody of that clothing. Therefore, and by design, there are no record of when, how many times, and under what circumstances Proctor and Bukhenik touched, manipulated, handled, or otherwise tampered with the clothing. The MSP Evidence Submission Handbook dictates that chain of custody begins at the time of collection and that the collector seal evidence packages as soon as possible after collecting to ensure integrity of evidence items and limit loss of transient evidence. Here, in violation of MSP's stated policies, the chain of custody for all of John O'Keefe's clothing, as well as dozens of pieces of taillight material, does not begin until March 14th, nearly 2 months after it was collected, when Proctor finally submitted it to the MSP crime lab. At some point before providing these clothes to the crime lab, Proctor and or Bukhenik placed pieces of the SUV taillight on them, where they were then identified by the crime lab in 2023. Proctor also planted pieces of glass on the bumper of Miss Reed's SUV while it was in his possession at the CPD Sallyport garage, which he then claimed to have recovered later on February 1st. Proctor planted this evidence to make it look like these shots originated from a cocktail glass that Mr. O'Keefe was holding when he exited the Waterfall Bar. Evidently, Proctor did not plan on Karen Reed's defense attorney insisting on forensic testing of the glass shots, which showed that they did not match the cocktail glass in Mr. O'Keefe's possession. In fact, the 5 glass pieces originating from multiple different sources. One shard of glass on the bumper did match another piece of glass that had been in Proctor's possession during the investigation. The only way for the glass to have ended up on the SUV bumper is that Proctor planted it there in an attempt to connect the vehicle to the death of Mr. O'Keefe. Is this a year-old replay? No, this is a brand new filing that has just been filed today. Other aspects of the conflicted and corrupt investigation. Proctor, Bukhenik, and MSP's investigation was rife with other examples of corruption and bias. For example, despite evidence that Brian Albert may have had video surveillance at the house, neither Proctor nor Bukhenik nor any other member of the MSP issued subpoenas. Slidey Pie, tonight's show will be on law girls, not attorneys. Neither Proctor nor Bukhenik nor any other members of the MSP issued subpoenas to Ring or any other home surveillance company, and no other questioned any other members of the Albert family about the presence of video monitoring. Proctor and the MSP also failed to track down other important witnesses and evidence. For example, Brian Loughran, a town of Canton snowplow operator turned out to be one of the most significant witnesses in the entire criminal trial. Proctor and his colleague never spoke to him during their investigation and only did so once Loughran was interviewed by a separate law enforcement agency and provided statements inconsistent with the MSP narrative, 18 months after Miss Reed was already indicted and awaiting trial. Specifically, Mr. Loughran drove his snowplow by the house multiple times in the early mornings on January 29th, including at 2:30 and 3:30. He reported that there was nobody on the lawn of 34 Fairview nor cars on the street in front of the house at 2:30. Mr. Loughran believes that he would have seen a body had it been on the lawn where Mr. O'Keefe was found several hours later. Instead, the second time he drove by the house around 3:30, Mr. Loughran saw a Ford Edge in front of McAlberts' house that had not been there an hour before, but which was then parked where Mr. O'Keefe's body was later found. Brian Albert drove a Ford Edge at the time. However, the Ford Edge was gone by the time Miss Reed arrived at the house around 6 a.m., and in its place, she discovered Mr. O'Keefe's body. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully never made any effort during the actual investigation to track down Mr. Loughran or any information relating to the Ford Edge. Proctor also secretly made efforts to protect other Albert family members during the investigation, who may also have had a role in Mr. O'Keefe's death. Witness Julie Nagel told Proctor that Colon Albert, Brian Albert's nephew, had been present at the house the night of January 28th, 29th. But Proctor omitted his name from his official summary of Miss Nagel's interview, even though he listed all others who had been present at the house with Colon. When Miss Reed's attorney filed a motion to obtain Proctor's notes, his handwritten memorization of Julie Nagel's interview mirrored almost exactly what was typed on his police report, except for the words Colon Albert. Proctor's interaction with Kevin Albert, Brian Albert's brother, during the investigation also demonstrate his close relationship with the Albert family, as well as his propensity for violating MSP rules and Massachusetts criminal laws. Repeatedly, Proctor used his personal cell phone to speak with Kevin, instead of an official channel where he coordinated interviews of witnesses, even though CPD was recused from the investigation. Further, in the middle of Proctor's investigation in the summer of 22, it was discovered that Proctor and Kevin Albert were out together drinking alcohol and driving in Proctor's cruiser on Cape Cod. At the end of the night, Kevin Albert forgot to bring home his gun and badge and left them in Proctor's cruiser. Their drinking and driving in Proctor's MSP vehicle violated both MSP policies as well as various Massachusetts criminal statutes and further highlights the conflict nature of MSP's investigation. Moreover, because of their close relationship, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully worked together with CPD in hiding certain videos from Karen Reed's criminal defense team. Specifically, upon information and belief, MPD and CPD collaborated to keep exculpatory surveillance video from Karen Reed's criminal defense team in preparation for the first trial. Those videos captured Brian Higgins' activities in the CPD parking lot and inside the police station shortly after the physical altercation at the house that led to Mr. O'Keefe's death. They demonstrated that Higgins' statement about his post-house party activities on the night of Mr. O'Keefe's death was not accurate. Upon information and belief, CPD knew it has this evidence and worked with the MSP to keep it from Miss Reed. Additionally, upon information and belief, CPD sets its auto-delete function for saving certain surveillance videos from the Sally Port to 30 days, therefore assuring the immediate destruction of likely additional exculpatory evidence. The 30-day auto-delete setting conflicts with the fact that CPD videos were shared with the defense over the course of 3 years. Therefore, either the setting was changed to prevent a defense expert from auditing the footage, which is when the 30-day setting was discovered, or the footage was obtained within 30 days and withheld from the defense. Yeah, that's the big problem. So glad that Jen has finally been called out for not doing CPR. Evidence proof at EMT all testified no blood. Plus dash cam proof 610. She was standing in the road. Her call shows 608 on phone. Yeah. Thank you, Lucy, for subscribing to Nate. It's hard on the voice when you're a little have something. The corruption at Norfolk County is appalling. Yes, and just remind yourself it's not going to change. The indictments, trial, and aftermath. Miss Reed was arrested on February 1st, pursuant to a criminal complaint charging her with manslaughter, along other charges. Manslaughter? What? She was required to post $50,000 for bail, and the court imposed several other conditions of release, including loss of her driver's license and stay-away order from the O'Keefe family and John O'Keefe III's home. Miss Reed was later rearrested on June 9th after being indicted for second-degree murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. Her bail was set to $100,000 by the Norfolk County Superior Court. In February 23, her bail was reduced to $80,000 at the defense's request. Miss Reed was tried twice by the Commonwealth. The first trial started in April 24 and ended July 1st after the court ordered a mistrial because of hung jury. On June 18th, following another nearly 2 months trial, Miss Reed was acquitted of all charges associated with the death of John O'Keefe: murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. For the first time in 3.5 years, Miss Reed was able to leave court knowing that the forces aligned against her had failed to convince a jury to buy their deception. Beginning of January 22, the defendant's action had had a profound effect on Miss Reed. She lost her employment and income. She lost her professorship. She lost her private health insurance. She lost her car and her driver's license. She lost her house. Her reputation, both personally and professionally, was utterly destroyed. She incurred multiple millions of dollars in debt for legal fees and additional millions in expert fees and costs. In addition, after being arrested twice, jailed twice, and tried twice, she has suffered years of intense stress and emotional harm, worried that she would be in prison for the rest of her natural life for crimes she did not commit. The part we're getting to now is give me money part. This is why they're gonna tell you why they should pay her for what they put her through. Miss Reed suffers from both Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis. As documented under seal with the criminal court, Miss Reed has undergone tens of surgeries to manage her illness prior to January 29th and endured a blood infusion just months before Miss O'Keefe's death. In the aftermath of the charges, 2 arrests, and during both trials, Miss Reed suffered a well-documented exacerbation of her symptoms amid the stress, anxiety, and emotional and physical impacts of being wrongfully accused of murder. While fighting for her freedom against the corrupt prosecution, Miss Reed underwent dozens upon dozens of documented medical procedures and treatments to attempt to address her health issues. The defendants' concorded plan executed that plan and framed an innocent woman, and they are now responsible for these extraordinary damages Miss Reed has suffered at their hands. MSP investigates and punishes Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully for their misconduct during the investigation. It's really hard to go after a prosecutor because everybody that you prosecute would come at you if they could. I don't know. Lally is a piece of shit. Lally is... everyone who thinks that Lally and Bev is the next one, forget about it. It's not going to happen. They have immunity against most of this. Proctor wrote more than 1/3 of the police reports in this case, testified at the state grand jury 3 separate times, interviewed every member of the McAlberts, had possession at least until March 14th, 22, of all of John O'Keefe's clothing and all of the taillight pieces found broken from the housing, processed Mr. O'Keefe's Chevrolet Traverse the day after Miss Reed was arraigned, had access to and reviewed all the ring videos, had access to and reviewed the surveillance from C.F. McCarty's, had possession of all of the CPD Sallyport and driveway videos, and numerous other critical investigative activities. And yet, once evidence of Proctor's conflicts and lies became public, he was extricated from this case in an effort to hide him from the jury and sanitize the compromised investigation, while Miss Reed was forced to trial not once but twice. Ultimately, Michael Proctor was relieved from duty and transferred out of the detective unit at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office at July 7, 2024, mere days after the conclusion of Miss Reed's first trial. Proctor was terminated from the MSP on March 19, 2025. Upon a release from the district attorney of more implicating text messages of Proctor's phone on October 18th, Proctor officially ended his appeal with the Civil Service Commission. On September 23rd, an MSP internal affairs investigation found Yuri Bukhenik failed to perform his supervisory duties in an ongoing investigation. On July 7, 25, Bukhenik was transferred out of the NDAO detective unit and reassigned to administrative role in another division. On October 18, 24, Brian Tully was disciplined and reassigned from SPDU and stripped of his detective designation. Tully was given special dispensation by Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey to continue detective work on the Reed case despite his demotion because of his behavior on this case. Again, say hello to the new boss. He's going to be the same as the old boss. Michael Morrissey and the next DA are just going to be the same. Upon information and belief, MSP Trooper David DiCicco and Jeffrey Kotkowski were also disciplined for their misconducts associated with the MSP investigation of Miss Reed. Counts. Footnote. After making presentment pursuant to GL 258, paragraph 4, Ms. Reed will add counts against A, MSP for negligent training, supervision, and retention of MSP troopers, including Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully, and B, the town of Canton for negligent oversight of the investigation into Mr. O'Keefe's death and of its own officers and facilities. It doesn't continue. So this is where they're going to charge all of you taxpayers so you can get to pay Karen Reed because the state are assholes. Hey, Gloria McLaughlin. Gluten. The state bar can go after him and he can get fired. Well, what did he do? He was presented bad evidence by the police and he trusted the police. He can't help it. It's not his problem. Anime, send me some of those movies. Should let Bacon know about who is running the DA in Norfolk now. The game just changed. Who's running it right now? As I know, it's Michael Morrissey who's running it right now. He's going to be there till next year, where he's going to be replaced with another company man. Count 1. Malicious prosecution under the Fourth Amendment against Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully. The preceding paragraphs are incorporated herein by reference. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully violated Ms. Reed's Fourth Amendment rights by engaging in malicious prosecution of Ms. Reed by causing her to be seized pursuant to legal process unsupported by probable cause. The criminal proceedings against Ms. Reed terminated in her favor when she was acquitted of murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of an accident with a death. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully caused Miss Reed to be seized without probable cause as described above, including but not limited to by leading, handling, and participating in the O'Keefe's investigation, even though Proctor was conflicted due to personal relationship with various witnesses, suspects, and potential suspects, which conflict led to Miss Reed's unlawful treatment. Handling the investigation, even though Proctor had an extreme and personal negative bias towards Karen Reed, which bias led to Miss Reed no, which bias led to Miss Reed's unlawful treatment, violating MSP rules, policies, and procedures in all aspects of the investigation, planting, fabricating, and manipulating evidence, falsifying documents, preparing false affidavit, and committing perjury, failing to secure evidence at the crime scene, obtaining evidence, timely and appropriate interview suspects, and investigate the Alberts, McCabe's, or Higgins, of allowing them to destroy potentially exculpatory evidence, failing to consider and present exculpatory evidence to prosecutors and the grand jury investigating Mr. O'Keefe's death, such as the evident dog bite injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's arm, and evidence that his injuries was caused by an altercation and not a vehicle strike, such as the lack of lower body trauma. Following her indictment by a grand jury, Miss Reed was rearrested without probable cause, forced to pay a $100,000 bond, to be released from custody, and required to comply with numerous pretrial release provisions. These post-arraignment deprivations of her liberty constitute seizures under the Fourth Amendment. Those deprivations continued during Miss Reed's second trial, in part because of Proctor's false testimony at Miss Reed's first trial. Among the other things, Proctor falsely testified that when he first saw the tail light on Miss Reed's car at Miss Reed's parents' house in Dayton, it had large pieces missing, and the shattered tail light displayed at the first trial, as photographed on February 1st, was in the same condition as on January 29th. He and Bukhenik never touched any part of Miss Reed's vehicle when it was stored in the CPD Sallyport. He retrieved taillight pieces on subsequent searches at the Alberts home when he knew he had deposited or arranged for someone to deposit taillight pieces at the property. Chris and Julie Albert were his loose acquaintances rather than friends, and his statement and sworn affidavit all claiming the Lexus was seized at 5:30 and that he arrived at Dayton at 4:30 were typos. Thus, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully, acting under color of law, violated Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizures. As a proximate result of this misconduct, Miss Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for Mr. O'Keefe's death and made to defend herself in 2 trials in the Superior Court for Norfolk County, resulting in the loss of employment, reputational damages, and millions of dollars in legal expense, as well as serious emotional and physical distress and injury. In addition to an award of damages for these harms, Miss Reed is entitled to attorney's fees under 42 U.S.C. 1988, cost, interest, and punitive damages. Count 2, supervisor liability against Bukhenik and Tully. The preceding paragraphs is all incorporated. A supervisor is liable under 42 U.S.C. 1983. Did I say 88? When the supervisor supervises, trains, or hires a subordinate with deliberately indifference towards the possibility that the subordinate's deficient performance will result in deprivation of an individual's constitutional rights. Bukhenik and Tully knew or should have known that there was a grave risk that Proctor would fail to investigate the Alberts, with whom he had close personal relationships, which he had disclosed. They also knew or should have known that there was a grave risk Proctor would wrongly seek to have Miss Reed charged, given the manifest biased evidence in his text messages, which were sent to Bukhenik, amongst others. Bukhenik and Tully should have taken easily available steps to avoid a constitutional deficient malicious prosecution of Miss Reed. Those measures included, but are not limited to, replacing Proctor with an unbiased investigator that had no personal relationship with anyone involved in Miss O'Keefe's death, safeguarding the crime scene and the physical evidence, including Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and 47 pieces of tail light material to prevent anyone from planting, manufacturing, or manipulating evidence. 3. Initiating timely searches of the Alberts house. And 4. Quickly seizing the cell phones and other forms of electronic evidence in the possession of the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins, which would have prevented their later manipulation and destruction. By not taking any of those measures, Bukhenik and Tully permitted Proctor and Tully permitted Bukhenik to violate Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizures, and thus themselves violated Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights. In these ways and others, Bukhenik's conduct constituted condonation of and acquiescence to Proctor's behavior or gross negligence amounting to deliberate indifference. In these ways and others, Tully's conduct constituted condonation and acquiescence to Bukhenik's and Proctor's behavior or gross negligence amounting to deliberate indifference. As a proximate result of their breaches, Miss Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for Mr. O'Keefe's death, resulting in the loss of employment, blah, 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 blah. Count 3. 42 U.S.C. 1983, conspiracy to deprive Miss Reed of her Fourth Amendment rights, preceding paragraphs. Bukhenik, Proctor, Tully, the Alberts, the McCabes, Higgins shared a common design and acted in concert to frame Miss Reed for Mr. O'Keefe's death. As part of their concerted efforts and among their many other misrepresentations, the McAlberts, Higgins agreed with each other to tell investigators that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house, that they did not see O'Keefe in the house that night, and Miss Reed made inculpatory statements on the morning of January 29th. When they made these statements, the House defendants did so only because they were aware that Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully would also act similarly by solely investigating Miss Reed. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully knew or should have known that the statements made to them by the House defendants were false, and that obvious and easy obtainable evidence existed demonstrating Mr. O'Keefe went into the house where he was involved in a physical altercation during which he was beaten up, fell back, gashing his head, and attacked by a dog. Instead, because of their close personal and professional ties to the House defendants, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully agreed with each other to use the House defendants' misrepresentations as the predicate for an implicit direction to conduct an investigation that solely targeted Miss Reed to the exclusion of everyone and anyone else. In furtherance of their plan, amongst other unlawful conduct, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully agreed: A. To continue to handle the investigation even though they had personal relationship with suspects in the murder, which led to unlawful and favorable treatment of potential suspects. To continue to handle the investigation even though they had bias against investigating the House defendants because of the House defendants' tie to law enforcement. To continue to handle the investigation even though they had exhibited an extreme and personal negative bias towards Karen Reed. To violate rules, policies, and procedures in all aspects of the investigation. To plant, manufacture, and manipulate evidence, falsify documents, and commit perjury. To not secure evidence and the crime scene, to not investigate and obtain available evidence or timely and appropriately interview suspects, and to not investigate the Alberts, McCabes, and Higgins. The McCabes and Alberts coordinated their efforts through text messages, phone calls, and conversations. Higgins and Brian Albert coordinated their efforts through telephone calls and text on their phones, which were later destroyed or discarded. Finally, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully coordinated with the McAlberts and McCabes through Proctor's sister Courtney, who communicated frequently with Julie Albert. Acting pursuant to the plan, Proctor and Bukhenik interviewed the McCabes and Brian Albert in a cursory manner, and all at the same location midday on January 29th and Nicole Albert on February 3rd. Proctor and Bukhenik only interviewed Higgins once at his attorney's home and did not secure or search his phone or search for communications between him, the Alberts, and the McCabe's. Proctor and Bukhenik did not search the Alberts' phones or home where there was likely evidence of Mr. O'Keefe's murder. Brian Albert and Higgins destroyed or discarded their phones, destroying evidence of the murder and cover-up. As a result of the conspiracy between and among them, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully never investigated the House defendants, and instead, Miss Reed was wrongfully arrested and prosecuted in violation of her Fourth Amendment rights. Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, and the House defendants acted in unison and had a peculiar power of coercion over Miss Reed because Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully were the state police employees investigating Mr. O'Keefe's murder, and the House defendants were able to direct that investigation solely towards Miss Reed because of their personal and professional connection to Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully. Whew, I've said that a lot of times. And their superior knowledge of police and criminal investigations as a result of their own work in and connection to law enforcement. The approximate result of Miss Reed's wrongful prosecution was loss of blah, blah, blah. This is how you could pay her. Thank you for reading this to us so I can keep working. It's me, Jessica. Thank you so much for that super chat. Question. Julie, is she the one who came in the car and attacked Aiden outside of D&E Pizza? Is that the one? Federal prosecutor Alan Deitch declared run for Norfolk County District's attorney. Yeah, he can declare whatever he wants. It's the Democrats are going to appoint whoever they want. Because it's not an election, it's an appointment. Deitch also served as the lead assistant U.S. attorney in federal investigation into the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe and the state investigation and prosecution of Reed. Yeah, but is he a Democrat and is he backed by the good old boys? Oh, that was Jill Daniel. I can't keep up with all these. They all took way too much Ozempic and all look like horses. Count 4. Massachusetts Civil Rights Act against Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins. Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, and the House defendants interfered or attempted to interfere with Ms. Reed's exercise and enjoyment on her rights under a federal and Commonwealth Constitution and laws through threats. Oh, Ted Daniels have just put on the twat. New statement from the attorneys from Brian Higgins, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, and Matthew McCabe. The allegations made by Karen Reed are entirely false, defamatory, and without merit. Our clients categorically deny each and every claim. This lawsuit is nothing more than a continuation of a baseless conspiracy narrative that has caused significant harm to the reputation and life of innocent people. Our clients acted responsibly, fulfilling their civil duties as witnesses, and have participated appropriately in the legal process from the outset. Ms. Reed's claims distort the facts, misrepresent the evidence, and target private citizens in an attempt to deflect blame. As reported yesterday, we will hold Ms. Reed accountable for the harm she has inflicted and the conspiracy she and Aiden Carney, also known as Turtle Boy, have manufactured. So, to me, that reads as the McAlberts will now file lawsuits against Karen Reed and Turtle Boy because they have apparently defamed them. That's going to be fun. Wicked Psych, yes, in the way beginning, but I'm not going back and reading it because I'm 7 pages from being done, and my throat is done. It says they'll try and incorporate it in the O'Keefe lawsuit. It was Jill Daniels who attacked Turtle Boy. Julie is Chris Albert's wife and Colin's mom. So she's the fat one. The only fat one in the family, right? The only one who doesn't look like she's a horse. I thought this would be an hour read, and now it's 2 hours. My poor neck. We can take a day off tomorrow. Among other acts, by manufacturing and planting evidence, not securing the crime scene, not searching the Alberts house and Albert Higgins' phones, it's just a restrainment of all the stuff. By falsely representing that the O'Keefe never entered the Albert house and by relocating his body to the location on the Alberts property where they would claim Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe, the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins caused Miss Reed wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins also caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution by destroying and discarding their phones, eliminating exculpatory evidence. The House defendants thereby interfered and attempted to interfere with Miss Reed's right under the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution and Article 14 of the Massachusetts Declaration of Right. Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution was intrinsically coercive under the Massachusetts law, not conceived. That's a different thing. Moreover, the House defendants and Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully's conduct amounted to threats, intimidation, and coercion designed to force Miss Reed to give up her defense and plead guilty to a crime she did not commit. If she just pleads, I hope she pleads or it'll be hell to pay or whatever he said, Matthew McCabe. As a proximate result of the defendant's action, Ms. Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for Mr. O'Keefe's death, resulting in loss of employment. This is damages again. Count 5, common law malicious prosecution against Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins. By manufacturing and planting evidence not securing the crime scene. This is all the stuff we have had before. Miss Reed's indictment, arrest, and prosecution occurred without probable cause because they were based on false, manufactured, manipulated, and planted evidence, and because Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully ignored exculpatory evidence and allowed potential exculpatory evidence to be destroyed. These criminal proceedings was instituted with malice, as evidenced by Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully's knowledge that it was based on false evidence. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully's bias and ill will towards Miss Reed, and for the improper purpose of to protect Proctor's friends and acquaintances, the Alberts. The criminal proceedings terminated in Miss Reed's favor when she was acquitted of murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of an accident with a death. By falsely representing that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Albert house and by relocating his body to the location on the Albert property where Jennifer McCabe would claim Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe, Brian and Nicole Albert, McCabe's, and Higgins caused Miss Reed wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins also caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution by destroying or discarding their phones, eliminating exculpatory evidence. Damages. Count 6, intentional infliction of emotional distress. By manufacturing and ignoring the evidence, all of this is what is in the other ones. By falsely representing that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house and by relocating his body. That's also what we just read. It's just summarizing what we already knew. The defendants knew or should have known that conduct would cause Miss Reed emotional distress since it would lead to her prosecution for murder and other crimes. And the conduct did cause and is causing Miss Reed severe emotional and physical distress. The defendant's conduct perverted the justice system, allowed Mr. O'Keefe's true killer to escape liability, and threatened to imprison Miss Reed. It is the type of behavior that threatens civilized society and is therefore extreme and outrageous. As a proximate result of defendant's action, Miss Reed suffered serious emotional and physical distress and injuries. Count 7, civil conspiracy, Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins. Proctor, Bukhenik, Tully, and the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins shared a common design and acted in concert to frame Miss Reed for Mr. O'Keefe's death. As part of their concerted efforts, and among their many other misrepresentations, the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins agreed with each other to tell investigators that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house, that they did not see Mr. O'Keefe in the house that night, and that Miss Reed made inculpatory statements on the morning on 29th. When they made these statements, the House defendants did so only because they were aware that Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully would also act similarly by solely investigating Miss Reed. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully knew or should have known that the statements made to them by the House defendants was false, and that obvious and easy obtainable evidence existed demonstrating Mr. O'Keefe went into the house where he was involved in a physical altercation during which he was beaten up, fell back, gashed his head, and attacked by a dog. Instead, because of their close personal and professional ties to the House defendants, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully agreed with each other to use the House defendants' misrepresentations as a predicate for and implicit direction to conduct an investigation that solely targeted Miss Reed to the exclusion of everyone and anyone else. That's what it says. In furtherance of the conspiracy, Proctor, Tully, and Bukhenik agreed to fabricate, plant, and manipulate evidence purporting to show that Miss Reed's vehicle hit Mr. O'Keefe pursuant to their plan. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully carried out multiple overt acts, including damaging the tail light on Miss Reed's vehicle while it was in the town of Canton's Sallyport, not securing the crime scene, and depositing tail light pieces on January 29th, prior to the MSP search team's arrival on site. In addition, Proctor deposited some of the broken taillight pieces on Mr. O'Keefe's clothing while the clothing was in his unprotected custody. Proctor also deposited glass alleged to have been from a cocktail glass on the bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus sometime prior to the vehicle's processing by MSPCL on February 1st. Another part of the conspiracy was to take coordinated steps to ignore and destroy potentially exculpatory evidence that pointed to other suspects like the Alberts and Higgins. The McCabe, the Alberts, the Higgins coordinated through text messages, phone calls, and on information and belief conversations. Higgins and Brian Albert coordinated through telephone calls and on information and belief text on their phones, which were later destroyed or discarded. Finally, Proctor coordinated with the Alberts McCabe through his sister, Courtney, who spoke frequently with Julie and Albert. Acting pursuant to the plan, Proctor and Bukhenik interviewed the McCabes and Brian Albert in a cursory manner on the morning of January 29th and Nicole Albert on February 3rd. All told the same false story that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' house. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully also only interviewed Higgins once with his attorney at his attorney's home and did not secure or search Higgins' phone and search for communication between him, the Alberts, and McCabe's. Pursuant to the coordinated plan, Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully also did not search the Alberts' phones or home where there was likely evidence of O'Keefe's murder. Further, Brian Albert and Higgins destroyed or discarded their phones, destroying evidence of the murder and cover-up. Following Mr. O'Keefe's murder, among other acts, the McCabes and Alberts agreed to make it look like O'Keefe died due to exposure after being hit by Miss Reed's car. As part of this common plan, Brian Albert and Higgins, both law enforcement officers familiar with investigations, communicated at 2:22 a.m. on January 29th after Higgins left the house. Shortly thereafter, as part of the plan, Jennifer McCabe deleted a Google search at 2:27 a.m. on January 29th for how long to die in the cold. Well, it says for how long it takes a person to die in the cold. That makes sense. One or more of them then relocated Mr. O'Keefe's body and deposited in front of the Alberts' house, where Jennifer McCabe claimed Miss Reed had dropped Mr. O'Keefe off earlier. The McCabes and Alberts then coordinated what they would say to the police, all of them falsely telling investigators that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully and the House defendants acted in unison and had a peculiar power of coercion over Miss Reed because Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully were the state police employees investigating Mr. O'Keefe's murder, and the House defendants were able to direct that investigation solely towards Miss Reed because of their personal and professional connection to Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully, and their superior knowledge of the police and criminal investigations as a result of their own work in and connection to law enforcement. Proctor, Bukhenik, and Tully and the House defendants defendants' conduct described herein were unlawful and tortious. Among other things, they constitute intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, common law malicious prosecution, and violation of Miss Reed's rights pursuant to the United States Constitution and the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights. As a proximate result of defendants' actions, Miss Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for Mr. O'Keefe's death, resulting in a loss of employment, reputational damages, and millions of dollars of legal expenses, as well as serious emotional and physical distress and injuries. She demands a jury trial, and she prays for the relief of enter judgment in her favor and against each relevant defendant on each count of this complaint. Award her damages in an amount to be calculated at trial, along with pre and post judgments, interest, cost, and expenses. Reasonable attorney fees incurred in connection with this litigation pursuant to 42 U.S.C. and other applicable statute of law. Grant her such other relief as the court deems equitable and just. Filed by Damon Secklison and Alan Jackson. 46 pages of what I see as some really not there's nothing new in this. Nothing we haven't heard before, because this is what Aiden has been talking about for the last 3 years. That dirty police helped the McAlberts cover up a crime. The biggest surprise that Colon isn't one of the people, but again, he was a minor at the time. I don't know. He's mentioned in there. Some people might think, hey, why indict him? But that's one of a lot of people have him as the prime suspect in this. I don't know. If I was to speculate, which I haven't done, well, I've done it sometimes, but if I was one who was to guess, and in a absolutely fictitious, has nothing to do with anything in the real world, I'm just making up stories. My money was always on Brian Higgins as the best suspect because of the haven't been a man who went to a bar now and again. I could see that what would you call it? That the way she's not interested in him, I could see that as being the main reason why someone would get in a fight. Then I don't. We know that the drug story is something that that Krusty made up, so it has nothing. My money would be, if I should put money on anything, I would put it on Brian Higgins. Yeah, Hickey. Again, men getting rejected, especially alpha men like that fat fuck who believes that every woman wants them, but as soon as they show him a little bit of interest, he turns into a I think you're hot. You do? Come on now, Hickey, you're Ukrainian, you're Danish. Thank you for persevering through this. Now take a rest. Thank you so much, Crispy Bacon. I will. I have another show I have to be on in 4 hours, so I need a rest. Well, she was that into him to begin with because, hey, let's be honest. Karen Reed, she's not a good guy. We know that from her text messages. We know for her flirting. She's not a good guy. But I still don't believe she did anything. And I believe that that the biggest suspect in this case should be Higgins. Not Higgins. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep. I'm reading a lot. Thank you for a year with you. Thank you, Carmen. Karen played Higgy like a fiddle. No, I don't think so. I think Karen is. I think Karen is just as bad at hooking up like Higgy is. She wanted the adventure, and she thought, "Oh my God, this man he used to fly helicopters with the president or whatever he used to do." And oh my God, there's so much trouble with me and John, and I could have a little adventure. And then she found out he was boring as fuck. And what is it you say? The grass isn't always greener. And she probably found that out. Said, "No, I'm going to stay with this guy." Yeah, I think Karen was. I think after the last 2 months, let's not beat around the bush and claim everyone was saints in this. John was an asshole to Karen. He used her for female companionship, and when he needed someone to be with him, he didn't give two fucks about her. I think John is a type of guy who has probably run a train through every woman in Canton. I think Karen was a woman who liked a bad boy. She was a very protected woman who had a very good life, but I think she was looking for that bad boy who could sweep her up off her feet and give her some attention and give her some adventure. And John wasn't it, because John was, as we know from his autopsy, most likely a heavy drinker, if not an alcoholic. He had fatty liver. He had a widowmaker waiting to happen. So she went on because she was kind of a bad bunny. She jumped on to the next law enforcement officer to get that little bit of danger in her life, but still be safe. And the problem is there's a lot of small dicks in law enforcement. That's why you never talk to an MP if you're in the military, because they have the smallest dicks of everyone. I'm sorry, Hellfish Haven, but that's my experience with MPs. And most of these MPs will then turn out to be cops later, and they will go around with their alpha male belief and their beta male confidence. And if I should make a fake scenario that has nothing to do with anything, Higgins walks up to him and say, "Well, I could have your woman anytime I wanted. Yeah, see how she's on you? She would actually, because he was drunk as fuck as well." And he probably showed him some messages between them, and hands started swinging. Wicked Psych, I'm messing all of them up. Excuse me, I read 46 pages and I said a lot of names. Who kisses a guy while you're at your boyfriend's when you know he has a camera everywhere? He didn't have cameras everywhere. It sounded like, oh my God, he lived in Fort Knox. He had a few cameras outside. It wasn't that bad. Come on now. But who does it? A woman who wants drama. If you don't think they exist, because I know all of you 302 people are very well-rounded, very sane people. Go on the Twitch thread and see the people who loved each other 2 months ago, how they every single day will start hating on a new person just to get a new piece of drama in their life. That's I'm just saying, Some people like a little drama in their life. I don't like drama. Speaking of law enforcement, if you are in it for the love of God, don't screw the inmates. It's making me work a lot. Stop it. Yes, if you're a prison guard, don't. If you're a prison guard, a YouTuber, or whatever you are, don't smex where you eat. Where you own your paycheck is not where you're going to have sex. There's only one person on my lipstick list. Oh, thank you, Brandon. Now that he said drama llama song is going through my head. I'm sorry, Wicked Psych. He had Ring cameras and he what was it? He had Ring cameras. Now I lost it again. He had Ring cameras and she knew where they were. Players gonna play. You could see that there was a lot of dead spots. You could. I could have had smacks in that house and no one could have seen it. Well, no one, because I would be doing it by myself. But yeah. I think Karen wanted a bad boy and got it in John till he decided to introduce her to the kids, and she realized that he was more dad than bad. Was he? The man who texted her at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Friday saying, I'm just waking up on the couch. I'm still hungover from yesterday. A day where he had been alone with his 2 underage kids. I'm just saying, there's not a lot of saints in Canton. There's not a lot of saints in any of these cases. But there's a bet in my future. Tonight at 6 p.m., I will be joining Lawyer Girls, Not Attorneys presentation where they will raise some funds for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Please come join us. Please go sub up to Nate the Lawyer's channel. We're trying to, well, we're not, but they are trying to boost it up. So when he is done with his operation, he can have over 1 million subscribers. That could be a cool thing if he could come out, be healed, and have 1 million subscribers. We did it with Legal Vices when he passed away, and hopefully we can do it with Nate when he is healed. So please do all of that good stuff and join us tonight and try and raise some money for Kelsey Fitzsimmons, because it's actually Kelsey Fitzsimmons' birthday today. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Am I going to say anything else? No. I think my voice is so busted I shouldn't do anything. I think Calling All Beings will also be streaming it tonight. But it's going to be on one of those channels. I don't know. I'm just going to show up and press the link. I need some sleep, as you can tell. I am all over the place. Go out there, make your days better, and smile to someone, and remind yourself, no matter how bad your day is, you're still not a part of the McAlbert clan, which would be horrible.
I'm Jimmy. How y'all doing?
I know English is your second language, but you don't.
It's my third, but I'm still better at it than you. You are
the most important people in this case that